Okay, Eric coming in. Hi, Eric. Welcome. Did I say hi to Caitlin already? Hi, Artie.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Good to
I
see
think you said
you.
hi to me, but my audio was still connecting, so I only caught the last bit of what you said.
Okay, good. That's good info. I
Oh.
should know, maybe like give people a few minutes before I say hi to them. So, okay, let's see. We've got Rose, Colleen, Caitlin, Rebecca, Dave. So I wonder if maybe while we're waiting, if some of the new people wanted to say hello and introduce themselves. I like Colleen and Eric, Ali, those are all new names. If anybody wants to speak, just jump in, or you can raise your virtual hand.
I guess I'll speak finding the hand, but Colleen, thank you, Shauna, for hosting this. I just bought the book a week ahead when I was chatting with somebody in my accountability group, and so it was perfect timing that you posted for this. Um, yeah, this is Vera. I have two little ones. The other one's on a monitor sleeping, so I will be muted for most of the time, and hopefully they don't interrupt too much.
Okay.
But I'm looking forward to this, so thank you so much.
You're welcome. We're so happy to have you here, and we're lucky to see the little babies. There's just an energy that little babies bring to the room, right? Like there's just no denying it. I'm always like, welcome to Earth. How's God? You were with him a lot sooner than we've been with him. A lot more recently, I should say. Yeah, I can tell by the look on your face.
I was gonna say that caught her attention. She's looking at you now.
Wow, what an adorable little peanut.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Why do people call kids peanuts? Peanuts are not even cute. It's the weirdest thing.
I don't know, but I do it. Totally do.
That's so funny. Okay, so I think we're ready to go. It's 12:05, so I guess it's the 10 of us. All right. I'm just going to jump right in. Does anybody else want to say hello or introduce yourselves? Allie?
I didn't. Hi, how are you guys? Hi, everyone. That was my husband. I'm on my husband's computer, so that was his beautiful face. That was Eric, but this is me.
Oh, okay. I was wondering. I'm like, Eric, okay, all right.
Yeah, no, he was here and he's gone now. But my name is Ali. This is my second week, and just a little bit overwhelmed, a little bit. I'm trying to take everything in, and um, I got wind of the book club because Rose, wonderful Rose, mentioned it at our last meeting last week. And I thought, let me chime in because I kind of felt like it would be not only a learning experience, but also kind of like a step away from everything and the modules and all those things. So I'm a newbie and I'm starting my module 2 today. So my book is not even here, so it gets delivered tomorrow, but I wanted to chime in and just see what this book club is about and meet everyone. And yeah.
Well, that's awesome. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else who's thirsty for wisdom fits right into this group. And I don't even think you need to have the book present to enjoy what we're going to be talking about. Also, if I may just project some advice onto you, which is just one step at a time, because what you're feeling right now is totally normal.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Yeah, I'm showing myself a lot of grace right now.
and
But just taking it one step at a time and just soaking everything in. I don't, I'm investing a lot into this, and I wanted to get the most out of it, and I didn't want to rush. So I'm taking my time with the modules.
right on, sister. You deserve it. You
Thank
deserve
you.
that
Thank you.
investment.
Thank
Artie,
you.
go for it.
Hi, Shauna, and hello, everybody. I did write a small email to introduce myself a little bit. Yeah, I'm really, really happy to be here. I read this book when I was expecting my daughter 21 years ago, and I didn't have anything in my head that time, So it just went like whoosh. Though this is the one of the holy books we in Hindu religion everybody reads. But when I saw Shauna's post of inviting everybody to join this book club, I was like, yeah, perfect timing, because I was finishing my graduation ceremony. So yeah, last week I graduated from J. Shetty School. And yeah, I haven't, set up my business yet, but yeah, this Gita's Gyan is going to help me uh, the transformation which already happened, and I'm hoping to continue that transformation with this Gita's Extra Gyan. So, and with beautiful community in the book club as well, I'm going to learn a lot from you all, from seniors. Some are from like maybe cohort 1, 2, 3, I don't know. So yeah, let's walk together.
Yay, we're so
Absolutely.
happy to have you. We love your beautiful energy.
Thank you.
All right. So anybody else want to chime in before we get started on dissecting the book? All right, cool. So I'm just going to start, and then everybody else can feel free to jump in. I don't want to forget, we had one of our students who can't make it today, and she posted her question in the chat. It's from Darty, and I don't want to forget, so I'm going to do this right off the bat. We'll start with hers. She said that her question for this week is how to find peace in detachment. Oh, stand by. I'm going to let one more person in, and she's brand new. So let me. Ashley, are you with us? Hey, Ashley. We're just getting ready to start. So you caught us right before. Did you want to say hello, or you don't, no pressure?
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm not turning back on the camera. I'm honestly so embarrassed if you guys don't be like that. Like I haven't done my hair, I haven't showered or anything. Oh my gosh. But yeah, no, hey everyone. My name's Ashley. I'm 25. I have not read the book yet. I downloaded the Audible though, and I did started listening to it. So I'm just going to be really listening and following along because this will be my first time participating in the book club, and I'm not too sure I'll have much to offer this time around, so I'm just gonna listen.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome. We're happy to have you here. And by the way, without your hair being done and all that should not interfere with you absorbing all of this wisdom and goodness. So you're good.
Oh yeah, no, I'm as long as my camera's not on, I'm fine.
And just like in class, just raise your virtual hand if you want to chime in, and you're welcome to chime in, whether it's another student also hasn't received their book yet either. So you're not alone.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
All right. So back to our question from Darty, which is how to find peace in detachment. Does anything come up for anybody right off the bat? Okay, well, I will take the lead, and then, oh, Dave, I swear, I knew it was going to be you. I might have,
Yeah,
I might have
pretty
manifested it.
So finding peace and detachment, when I hear the question, and I just found this fascinating. I'm so excited and glad to be here. So thank you again, Shauna, for organizing this. I think to me, choosing to detach is to choose peace. And by choosing detachment and consciously embracing that, you are accepting whatever happens with whatever you're attached to, and releasing yourself from any need or any kind of egocentric desire that you have from whatever outcome. So for me, when I get asked that question, I think that it's having the ability to consciously accept whatever is to happen and detach from any kind of egocentric need that you might have.
Absolutely. Excellent point. Sophia?
That's actually really great, Dave. And I want to follow up on that because I think detachment means freedom. So when you detach from the materialistic world, when you detach from certain beliefs, you make room for everything. You make room around yourself, inside yourself. And that means freedom because you cannot be dependent on something anymore. Yeah, that's my thought on that.
That's right. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Artie?
So I believe in there is not a possibility to detach. It's basically why, because I feel we all are connected for some other reason. Detachment for me, if at all it is, it means you prioritize, you know your values, you know your boundaries. So you create that whole philosophy of your own self around you, which helps you to feel the connection or not feel the connection. But for me, I feel it's very hard to detach completely from anything because I believe we all are connected.
I love that. Absolutely. I find a lot of truth in that as well. I'm right now processing what each one of you said, right? So Dave says peace is detachment, right? Detachment is peace, because if you detach, so let's say, for instance, we'll break it down. Let's say, for instance, your friend, a partner, somebody you're close to in your life is stressed out about something, right? And a lot of us are empaths and a lot of us are rescuers. And we tend to, people who fall under those labels tend to take on other people's feelings and stress, right? So we we immediately attach. And when we attach to what that, this is just one example, what that one person is feeling, we're not in peace anymore. So if we are able, according to, just going off of Dave right now, if we are able to detach, like we can observe without attaching to it, then I do practice that in my own life, and I do experience more peace than I would if I were going back into that attachment, teaming up with it mode. Sophia, you said that you felt that detachment was freedom. And I think that freedom and peace go hand in hand. And in the book, they actually specifically mentioned the word freedom. And I wonder, and this, I don't know if we'll end up talking about this today or not, but to me, I'm like, I don't know if peace and freedom are the same thing, right? Just like peace and detachment aren't the same thing. Like peace is a symptom of detaching. Freedom could also be a symptom of detaching. And I love, Artie, what you said about prioritizing as opposed to detaching, because scientifically, energetically, we are all one. That's just science, right? And then we go into the spiritual conversation where we're talking about spirituality, and then we're all connected there in some ways as well, depending on our level of awareness. So not everybody is going to be able to grasp these concepts. And even if they can grasp them, are they going to be able to put them into action? That's a whole nother question. So it is advanced to be able to detach. That's an advanced concept because most of us team up with our emotions. Our emotions show up and we go, come on, team, what are we going to do? Right? So as we start to evolve on our journey, we actually learn how to observe our emotions instead of attaching to them. And not everybody can do that. So if you can prioritize, to me, that sounds like a bridge. Like when people, you can't fully detach, but you're also further along. You're not teaming up with your emotions. So prioritizing could be a really great way for people to find the middle ground, Dave?
I was just going to say, it's kind of almost important to draw the line between the distinction of disconnection and detachment. Because right, like there is, I fully believe that there is we are all one, and the universality of the universe, right, and how we are all connected. And like detachment, we talk about the first chapter of The War Within, right? Everyone has an ego. Our ego serves its purpose. It's not necessarily wrong, but it often gets us into trouble. And the more awareness we draw around the ego, the more we can see where it tends to get us into trouble. And once you become conscious of your ego acting out that way, then you can detach from certain needs and certain outcomes that are ego driven. And once you can do that, it's easier to accept and find peace. That's just what I think. And where disconnection, it's unavoidable. And it's a lot more, if you're looking at disconnection, I think that's not necessarily healthy all the time, because it just seems a little bit more arbitrary than detachment, where detachment is something mindfully done to preserve your energy and to preserve your goodness and wholesomeness. Because it's just a matter of understanding that so much of what's happening around us is out of our control, and the more things we are attached to, the more things we need to go right for us to be content. If we're less attached, then the easier it is for us to find contentment and peace in our daily lives.
I love that. And and then we'll go back to that because I don't want Caitlin to forget what she's going to say, but I will say this. I'm always very curious about the definitions, right? So as we're talking about what's the definition of disconnection and detachment, because they're very similar. I don't know if anybody else feels the same way about it. So I'm really curious about what the definition says, but let's hear what Caitlin says and then we'll go back to that. Go ahead, Caitlin.
Yeah. So I really liked what Dave was saying there, because as I was listening to the first round of comments, I was like, well, I feel like because I'm detaching, it doesn't mean that I have to feel disconnected. And based on what Dave just said, the way that this conversation is hitting me is kind of the phrase of accept what you can't control, only control what you can't. You can't always control those situations that don't go the way you want. You have to accept them. And that for me is the detachment part, of like, okay, this situation is happening. Now I have to figure out how to deal with it, because, maybe I can't ignore it. I can't control it, but I do have to figure out how to deal with it in my life. So I like that distinction of, just because I want to detach doesn't mean that I also feel disconnected from it. But that's all I had to say.
I love that. I resonate with that. I absolutely do. I think it's interesting how you're drawing the correlation between detachment and acceptance, because those also have different meanings, but work really well together. And I love, Dave, that you brought that concept into this. Is just because you're detaching doesn't mean that you're disconnecting. So I'm just going to read the definitions if everybody's interested. I pulled them up. It says disconnect is to break the connection of or between, interrupt or terminate, Okay, so those seem like the ones that are most present. And then detachment is a state of being objective or aloof, or the action or process of detaching or separation. So I think there really is a distinction between the two, that you can detach but still stay connected. I think that's true. Do you guys all feel the same about that? Sophia?
Yeah, so when you just read the definitions and also what Caitlin said, I just thought about putting it like into context. So for example, if you say, I feel disconnected from XYZ, it kind of sounds or feels negative. Like I feel disconnected from myself is, for me, it's a negative statement. But if you then put it with a detachment, I have detached myself from limiting beliefs, that kind of feels positive, or it sounds positive to me. So that was my initial thought on what was just shared.
Yeah, I'm going to get to you in just one second, Ashley. I just want to respond to what Sophia just said. When I was in the Air Force, when I was very young, we had a fighter detachment connected to our base. So that's interesting, right? Because the aircraft that were part of that detachment were from another base. But it's interesting because they were still connected. So even in that word detachment, it's still a part of the unity of what we were doing. So that's super interesting. Ashley, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a couple examples I think that speaks true to what detachment looks like. So I would say if you're looking at yourself, so for example, a lot of us are on this self-development path where we are confronting some of the negative things that we told ourselves about ourselves. So a way of detaching in that moment from the negative things that you've told yourself is by acknowledging that just because you told yourself those things doesn't mean that you're a bad person or that you deserve to experience any form of punishment. It just means simply accepting, like Caitlin said, I think that's her name. I really hope so. But it's just like when she said, you're accepting the situation for what it is. Like, okay, I used to say horrible things about myself. All right, what can I do about it? So you're not making it personal. You're not analyzing it to the core where you're, necessarily turning it onto yourself. And like you're and by doing so, you end up making it much more bigger than what it really is, which is it was simply a situation that happened and now you learned from it. What are you going to do to move on from it? And then another situation that's actually personal for me is when you are separating yourself from someone, when you're letting go of a relationship. So rather than taking what happened during the relationship personally, where uh, so whatever arguments you guys had, for example, rather than taking those arguments and viewing yourself as the blame or to fault, you see it as, okay, this happened simply because this is how I was back then. That's how they were. This is what we did, you know? You're accepting it at face value pretty much. You're like, this is what happened. It doesn't mean that I am that situation. It doesn't mean that situation defines me. It just means that's what happened. So how can I move on? So detachment allows you to just allow yourself to flow through life without holding on to what happens and making it a part of who you are, pretty much.
So I love that. So basically, detachment equals flow for you. And it gives you the ability to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I see detachment. That's how I've personally experienced detachment.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That was vulnerable and beautiful. And I agree 100%. So I feel like what we have accumulatively come up with today is that when you detach, you are not disconnected from, but you're in a state of acceptance of what you can or can't control. You enter the flow, which is like the result of detaching. And from a state of flow, we're able to look at what we can change and then grow from there. So it gives us the opportunity to grow instead of attaching to a person, place, thing, or meaning. Does that feel about it? Awesome. So hopefully that helps Darty with her question. I had a few things that I wanted to bring up from the book. I don't know, like, if anybody else noticed these things or not, but I just thought they were worthy of talking about. On page 81, I thought it was super interesting. I don't know why this struck me, but it says, when there is no sense of family unity, the woman of the family becomes corrupt. And do you guys mind if I read that little bit? I thought it was
It was
very
going to be awkward for me to bring this up, so thanks a lot, Shauna.
Yay. I'm so glad, because I'm like, wow, that's super interesting, because I know a lot of corrupt men. So I think this is, and I'm not closed off to the concept, because Lord knows I've had my fair share of being corrupt. I just want to like dive into it together. I find it interesting. I also wanted to say hi to Monica. She joined us a little bit ago. So hi, Monica, welcome back. Okay, it says, why shouldn't we turn away from sin? So I'm jumping in a little bit. Okay. When a family declines, ancient traditions are destroyed. With them are lost the spiritual foundations for life, and the family loses its sense of unity. Where there is no sense of unity, the women of the family become corrupt. And with the corruption of its women, society is plunged into chaos. Social chaos is hell for the family and for those who have destroyed the family as well. It disrupts the process of spiritual evolution begun by our ancestors. The timeless spiritual foundations of family and society would be destroyed by these terrible deeds, which violate the unity of the family. Does anybody have any thoughts? Dave, you mentioned right away, thank you for bringing it up. So dive right in, brother.
Okay, so this is one of those moments where I have to acknowledge that I am the only man in the room.
Thank you for bringing some testosterone to the scene. Thank you.
Well, it's not always welcome.
It's very welcome here.
And like I have some thoughts on this that I'm not necessarily comfortable sharing, and it's an interesting dynamic when I look at the world today, because I think there are questions, and this may be like, this is going on the internet, so I have to be conscious of what I'm saying.
Well, may I just say, you're right, I hear you, but I want you to know, I can't speak for anybody else here, but I value your opinion, even if it's opposing mine, because I want to be challenged. And if somebody is afraid to challenge what the rest of us think, then we are limiting ourselves, because certainty is a closing of the mind, and to create what's new requires doubt. So I want you to know that you're fully invited to share whatever's taboo or fearful for you.
Well, thank you for hearing me, Sean, and thank you for creating a safe space. So it makes me curious about the idea of when I read that, it was profound. As somebody who's recently gone through a divorce, and I see some forces in the world that may allude to feminism run amok. Feminism has been a necessary cause in our world. Women have been disempowered throughout history, as have a lot of people. And what I think that we are in danger of, and this is kind of what the book is saying, is if women have no family to live for, there is danger of corruption with them. And obviously with men. Men have an infinite history of corruption. That's not a question. But I just, when I read that, I thought it was quite profound, because what I feel we see in society, which I see is kind of almost crumbling. I don't think we're at the greatest moment of society. I'm often curious about, have we overcorrected a little bit when it comes to making sure that everyone's empowered and equality? And like, I saw this, and I've really had since my split, naturally, a new awakening and perspective shift on just even the concept of family, and about how it is just about people working together, trusting each other, loving together, and making that mean something so ultimately significant, and everybody fitting in their role in that society. And traditionally, the males have been providers, women have been caregivers. That those roles need to evolve over time, but the essence of the family, I think, is really the backbone of society. And we've just allowed things to disintegrate so much that we try to replace them. But in our first meeting, I talked about things like ancient truths, ancient wisdom and universal truth. And at the end of the day, men and women combine to make life. That is kind of the base point of family. And when I'm curious to see where everybody else sits on this, women getting corrupted. I think that there are different, men and women are, sure, we could be equal, but we are different people, and women are driven by different things, and men are driven by different things. I don't justify a man cheating on anyone, nor do I justify a woman cheating on anyone, but I do believe that they often do it for different reasons, and both are corrupting factors in marriages and relationships and family, but I don't know that they're necessarily the same. That's all. I'll start with that.
I love it. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. Ashley, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't remember the whole quote, but just going off of the whole main idea, which is women being corrupted if the union of the family is not there, I view that in the sense of, if you don't have your purpose, then what are you going to do? Like, it's like all of us today. A lot of us today, if we don't have a direction in life, then we're just lost. And when you're lost, you usually end up engaging in a bunch of different things, half of them being fucked up. I don't know if we can swear in this book, but
I mean,
half of
unless
them
somebody wants to speak up and say, please don't, I'm fine with it.
Okay, but yeah, so like with that being said, if you just think back to your own life, I'm sure we all have things that we've done that we're not proud of, that was our worst moments, that, really brought us out of character. And it was simply because we were just lost. So I feel like that quote, in essence, is just saying that as a woman, for the most part, and at least it speaks true for me, you have this innate desire to want to give to your family, all of you, literally all of you. But when you don't have that unity in your family, then you don't have anything to give to. It's like you're giving, all of you, but it's not being received, because in order for it to be received, everybody needs to be working together. When they're not, then it kind of feels like it's for naught. And once it feels like it's for naught, then you're lost. You no longer feel like what you're doing is worth anything. So what then? And that's not to say that that is the experience of every single woman out there, but it really kind of has been when you also look at it on a grand scale. So
It's a common experience. Like, maybe it isn't true for everybody. I actually wanted to touch on something that Dave said, because I don't know if this is even pertinent, but I know you were a little bit worried to share your opinion, and you were making a statement that, maybe feminism did I understand you correctly, has maybe gotten a little bit to the extreme side of the scale. Did I get that right, Dave?
If I were to articulate it kind of precisely, feminism has gone beyond, in my opinion, for the sake of this conversation, has gone beyond an equality movement and almost turned into a bit of a female supremacy movement in certain facets of it. And upon that, that's when it gets dangerous. And that would be just as male supremacy would be what I would determine to be corrupt. I would say that female supremacy is no better. A lot of people talk about a patriarchy. Well, if a patriarchy is evil, I can assure you that a matriarchy is not any less evil. It's just different. Focusing on one over the other isn't any better. Neither of those are equality based. They're all based on one over top of the other, and that quite literally you can't coexist that way.
Yeah, I actually agree with you 100%. I think that you can't, like, there's a famous saying from Martin Luther King, and I can't quite get it, but it's something like, you can't fight hate with hate. Only love can do that. Something like that. You guys know what I'm talking about? And that's what I think of when I think of this battle between the sexes. It's like some have come in and taken it to the, we're going to hurt you the way you hurt us. And you can't find peace or equality from that state of being. So I resonate with that 100%. And I think that might be one of the reasons why this really stuck out to me, because it really honed in on women. So when it started, I didn't start at the top of the page. I kind of dove right into the middle, but before it stated that Arjuna was trying to decide whether he wanted to kill the men that he loves that also have wives and children. And that's where it came from. Well, if I kill these men, then what's the domino effect of what happens after they're dead? And going back to what Ashley was saying, it's like life purpose. So if their men are gone, so now the family unit is broken, and the woman was dedicated to the family unit. And now that that unit is gone, her purpose feels damaged, right? Because she still has her children that she has to take care of. So there's that, but we all know that some women are not able to, like, that's not enough for them. I think we've all witnessed that, right? Men and women, just taking care of their children is just not enough purpose. So now that we've discussed it as a group, I'm feeling less triggered and a little bit more understanding of why they said this. And I just thought it was super interesting. So go ahead, Ashley.
Yeah, so building off of Shauna and Dave, this ties back into the whole the whole yin yang theory or just way of life, and what it means to actually be in balance. And you can literally find this in everything in nature. There is a female part and a male counterpart to everything in order for it to actually be fully balanced. So I think when Dave was saying that for feminism to be at the pinnacle of society right now, that's a problem. I think what he's saying is that there's no balance right now. And because it's been unbalanced is why we're having all these issues come up. And that's a fact, like we need balance. Balance does come from both male energy and female energy working together side by side. Now, I know this is a really touchy subject because this, I feel like, ties into the whole heterosexual relationship and like all of that. And I feel like this kind of excludes the same-sex relationships and like this people who are transgender and people who don't identify as male, even though they have the male genital. And we're so scared to say this, but this is what we need to address, They feel excluded from this. And I think that this is where we really want to pay the most attention to is how can we find that balance still even when it does feel like it's leaning more towards male energy or more towards female energy. Like, we know that that exists there somehow. And so I think that also ties into why the woman ends up getting corrupted as well. And it's because she just doesn't have that balance. She doesn't have someone checking her, in other words.
Mhm.
And how I mean that is, it's the same exact thing as you needing somebody else to be your mirror for you to understand what it is about yourself that you're not seeing.
Mhm.
Nobody can fully be aware of themselves without getting some type of outside feedback as to how they're responding. And you get that balanced feedback when you have it from someone that's the opposite of you, that was literally to be designed to fit with you in that sense. So yeah.
I appreciate that perspective. And on the topic, the taboo topic of, you know, the LGBTQ community, I wanted to interject that even if a person doesn't have the opposite genitalia, I do think there's something to be said about having feminine energy and masculine energy, even when that genitalia isn't speaking to that. So I do think that there can be balance found outside of the genitalia, but I recognize that it is an important topic, and it's important that we talk about things that are taboo and scary and uncomfortable so that they become less taboo and scary, and everybody experiencing life in whatever shape or form feels a sense of unity. So I appreciate you bringing it up, even though that's, you know, can be an uncomfortable subject for a lot of people. Dave, go ahead.
I thanks, Ashley. It really did come down to the yin and the yang. That was what I was going to say first of all, and that is just overwhelmingly about balance. And even in the black or the white, there is a little bit of black and a little bit of white. So I have feminine energy, I have masculine energy. It's all there. In times of war, it was the men who were wiped out, not the women, right? The women may have fallen victim to other persecutions after the battles were fought, but after battles were fought, it was the men who were killed and the women left to raise the children. Naturally, when you're out of balance, corruption is going to take over in some way or another, and it's going to have a ripple effect on the children for whoever knows how long. And the fact that Arjuna was present to this shows his own wisdom and his own connection to the importance of that balance. It really is the yin and the yang. Once you fully understand it, you start to see it everywhere, and how we need to have an understanding of the need for balance in the universe. Even creating life, it takes both. It takes both to create life, and it takes both to create a person. And we've kind of, like, we talk about detachment. We've detached from that principle, and naturally, when you detach from that principle, and the book even talks about it, there's a disintegration that comes along with that, and that's a great cost.
Absolutely can be, yes. Caitlin, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna do my best to like articulate my thoughts here. So I'm just going back over that passage there on page 81. And I totally agree there with you guys saying, like, you know, why were women such a big part of it, and the whole conversation you guys just had. Totally agree. When I'm going back over it, I'm going to read a little bit of it real quick. So it says, when a family declines, ancient traditions are destroyed. With them are lost the spiritual foundations for life, and the family loses its sense of unity. Where there is no sense of unity, the women of the family become corrupt, and with corruption of its women, society is plunged into chaos. Social chaos is hell for the family and those who have destroyed the family as well. It disrupts the process of spiritual evolution begun by our ancestors. The timeless spiritual foundations of family and society would be destroyed by these terrible deeds which violate the unity of life. So I was sitting there hearing you guys and, you know, your discussion of like the man, the woman, yada, yada. And I agree with it. But I kept reading over this passage and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to flip to the back of the book. And when you flip to the notes about this chapter, it's on page 268 if anybody wants to look at it. I was kind of glad to read this part that says the subject here is not the observance of caste restrictions, but the essential cohesion of the social fabric. Because that's also kind of the thought that I was having. I understood why you guys got triggered by the mention of women, but to me, when I read it, it's not the fact that it's men or women. I think in this case, because it's the women that carry on the spiritual traditions for the children, because like Dave just said, the men get killed. The women are who teach us our way of life, because when our men are gone, the women of my family teach me how I live, what my spirituality is, all of that. So yeah, I just thought that was kind of interesting, because to me, it's not the fact of the woman getting corrupted, it's whoever is left to carry on the spiritual tradition. So cast out the fact that it's women at that time,
Right.
and it becomes who's left to teach us.
As you were
So I just
reading
wanted
it,
to see.
I love that. Thank you for that. As you were reading it over again, like, and I was following along, the first thing that popped into my head is like, I'm so focused on the fact that they're saying women will be corrupt because of my baggage with corrupt men. And I'm like, what do you mean the corrupt women? What about the corrupt men? That I missed the whole point of what they're really talking about is the decline of the spirituality and the unity of society. So I was getting triggered and caught up in that specific point, when really it really is talking about, like, and it says, it is said that those whose family dharma has been destroyed dwell in hell. Like, this is really about the spiritual evolution, the process of spiritual evolution. So wow, so we have to be mindful when we're reading to notice when we're getting triggered by something that's within us, and that obvious, I mean, nobody's surprised, right? Like, no matter how spiritual we want to be, we are still living in this physical world, and we are still affected by all of the dynamics of this physical world. So no surprise there, but good for us to all be aware of, to be mindful, like, don't miss the message, because the message is, if he kills all of those men, then he's destroying the families, which then destroy the spirituality. Anybody else have a input? Go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, just because if you buy into the concept of the yin and the yang, and they are perfect together, and you take away the black part, let's say the black part is the masculine part, then it's just it's all the white part, and it just can't have it's naturally unharmonious, right?
Yeah. Did you guys
It has
know?
nothing to do with women being bad. It has just to do with the fact that you have one supply of energy not being kept in check, and this and energy. Sorry, that feminine energy keeps masculine energy in check too. That's why it's balanced. Once you take one away, naturally it disintegrates.
I'm really grateful for everybody's input, because I'm seeing this particular passage in such a new light, thanks to you. See, I knew I needed a book club to get through this book. So, yeah, I wanted to kind of touch on the yin and the yang a little bit. I love the yin and the yang. It's my favorite thing, and it represents balance. But something that I read, and this is just triggering this, I don't know if it's relevant or not, but this girl said balance is not realistic because it's not consistent. Like, we reach balance, but it's fleeting. So the real game changer is not to aim to achieve balance, but your real goal is to achieve nervous system regulation. That means even when life is not in balance, we're able to stay regulated. Isn't that an interesting concept? And to me, the symbolism of the yin and the yang with the, the white dot and the black dot mixed in with the dominant colors, to me, it's like, it's really symbolic of all the gray in between, because the older I get, the more I realize life is not black and white. And when we try to simplify it as if it is, I think it causes us a lot of pain and confusion, because it just isn't. So I love that about the yin and the yang. Rose, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to take it in a whole different direction. In the beginning of the book, we are told through the notes not to take this as literal translation. This is not about a war field. It's not about out there killing. This is supposed to be an inner war. So if this is an inner war and it's us talking to us and God, then who are we killing? What are we killing? If we are, I don't want to kill my family. Okay, so what does that mean? What's going to happen if I do kill my family? So does that relate to the detachment? Does that mean we're walking away? We're making decisions on whether we're going to stick around or not? So if it's an inner discussion and not a battlefield, how does that actually, what's the metaphor telling you to do?
Yeah, I actually thought about that myself, because I was just thinking, it's interesting how Krishna is never giving Arjuna the actual direction, but it seems to me like he's sort of telling him, you got to do this, you got to do this. Like, it feels like he's pressuring him in the direction of like making a decision. And I don't know if he's challenging him to see how much he knows himself or how much he knows that what he wants. But it makes me wonder if he's asking him to kill off his desires and his pleasures. Because we're so attached to our emotions, right? Which our emotions tend to seek whatever makes us feel good. Even if it's sadness makes us feel good, because that's familiar, because we've had it for so long, right? It seems like our emotions are a part of the desires and the seeking. So maybe he's just saying what you're killing off is your desires. Could that be something? Anybody? Let's see. We have 2 new messages. This is what happens. We hear our clients. We all have our baggage and what gets triggered. Oh yeah, it's the journey, not the destination. That's right, Artie. What do you think, Rose? Do you have any more input on what I just said?
Yes, I think you're on the right track. I'm not normally a philosophical discussion kind of person here, so this is difficult for me, because I know I have thoughts. I just don't know how to put them out there. You guys are doing so good. I'm learning so much just listening to all of you.
Well, just know that, like, I'm over here just saying all kinds of wild shit, even if I don't think it pertains to the book, because just like Artie said, this is the journey. Like, we don't have to get this right. That we're together because we have a safe space where we can get it wrong, and maybe somebody else can give us a new concept and we can go, oh, that's awesome. Okay, I'm going to add that to my repertoire. So just
he says on page 80, he says, oh Krishna, I have no desire for victory or for a kingdom or pleasures. Of what use is a kingdom or pleasures or even life if those for whose sake we desire these things, teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, uncles, in-laws, etc., are engaging in the battle, renouncing their wealth and their lives. So he's claiming he doesn't want the riches. He doesn't want the glory. He doesn't want to be in the battle. So he's trying to figure out why Krishna wants him to move in this direction. So he wants to know, what is the purpose how am I gonna say it? Do you know what I mean?
I do. I feel like I'm picking up what you're putting down. You're like, well, why would he be giving up his desires when he's basically saying he has none? So he doesn't really need to give up something he's saying he doesn't have. But I think that's a part of the conversation is he's starting to realize that. He's like, wait a second. These are the things that I will gain if I do kill them. And now he's realizing, but I don't want those things after all. So then what's the point of going to war? It's deep. It's super deep. Dave, I'm curious what your input is.
Yeah, so I just see a lot of him just tuning into the overt costs of this kind of a battle, and then the kind of covert costs, like the more rippling effect. Like not only are we going to be like, I don't want all these riches if I'm going to be killing off a generation of people here, because that's not really a kingdom that I want to build anything on. And then you talk about the more the less direct, or indirect is probably a better term, the indirect costs of the ripple effect of a generation of men being eliminated from a society. And then he realizes that the cost is too great to just be chasing after something here, because it's just not worthwhile. Because for him, that kind of glory, when you have an understanding of spirituality, as obviously he does, just pursuing more with a cost of your soul or the soul of your community, it's pretty hollow when that's your victory, and your victory is on the blood and bones of thousands of men, and they have fatherless children whose evil of war is going to naturally be corrected through their pain, right? I think so.
I wanted to say this earlier and it escaped me, but it's back. So yay. And Rebecca, I'll get to you in just a minute. But with the whole concept of the yin and yang, I have noticed in my life that I have grown exponentially because of the pain and destruction that I've experienced in my life. So is this killing off of these certain parts of ourself necessary for our continued growth, for us to reach the purpose, our purpose? And also, I want to get to Rebecca, but I just want to plant this seed for us to think about, and then we can all jump in. But Dave said two words that just were like little green lights or something to me. He said the kingdom and the riches. And my thought was, okay, so if everything here is symbolic, right? Because we're not really talking about the war. We're not really talking about the kingdom or the riches. So then symbolically, what is the kingdom and what is the riches? So just think that over, but I want to get to Rebecca. Go ahead. What happened to her? Where'd she go? Rebecca?
Can you hear me, Shauna?
Okay, there you are. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I think to what you said too, and going back to what Dave said, is, this is a metaphor. So Krishna also says to him, like, almost the opposite, but you're a warrior, so you should go fight. And so therefore it's like, well, you're telling me on one hand, I'm telling you, I don't want to kill off my family, the spirituality in me. But on the other hand, I'm a warrior and I'm meant to be a warrior. God put me on earth to be a warrior. So I should be doing that. So it's this like juxtaposition. And then they go on. And interestingly enough, in this translation, chapter 2 is called self-realization. And so then Krishna goes on to tell Arjuna to, therefore, in the top of page 95, devote yourself to the discipline of yoga, for yoga is skill in action. And so basically what he's telling him is that balance, that yin and yang, everyone's been discussing, that internal conflict, the balance, the dance with internal conflict. What is that? And he has to figure that out because it is internal. So I think that's where the metaphor of the war really is, this internal conflict that we're seeing it externally, but that really is that balance, that how do we balance that yin and yang, that energy.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Sophia?
Yeah, it's exactly what I wanted to say. Just to bring it back a little bit closer to the text, just to see that Arjuna is a warrior and he is confronted in a situation where he's like, I want to fight. But then seeing the family on the other side, he has an internal conflict. It's just what Rebecca said. He has this internal conflict of identity of, okay, I'm a warrior. What should I do? Should I follow my duty? Or should I question, I cannot really kill my family on the other side? So that's like, yeah, the how do we deal with those conflicts that we're opposed to? I think that's like the message behind it. How can we deal with the conflict of identity in this particular example?
Thank you very much for that. I can't get away from the question in my head, who made him a warrior? How does he know that that's what God wanted him to be? And what kind of warrior? Is it the warrior that's actually killing people, or is he a warrior because he's resisting the desires and the egocentric, as Dave mentioned, urges? You know, that's like, and also the way you and Rebecca are putting this, it's almost reminds me of like the impossible question. Because if any of us were placed in a situation, and now I'm being literal here, okay, and I know this is not literal, but I think it's important for us to ping pong back and forth with the literal and the metaphorical to really like, you know, get the answer that we really are looking for. So if we were literally put in a position where we had to kill our family and friends, or what is the, like, what's the or? If he doesn't kill his family and friends, then the rest of his family and friends continue to live dishonorably and not in such a way that they deserve. Like, it's just, I just think it's interesting if we actually looked at it literally, but we'll talk more about that later. Ashley, you've been waiting so patiently. Go ahead, and Madhavi, you're next. Thank you, Sophia.
Okay, so I'm wondering how relevant what I have to say pertains to the chapter, only because again, like I'm still getting through it myself. So but what I'm hearing and going off of what Shauna said when you said that oh shit, don't lose your train of thought now. Oh yeah, so when you were wondering like who told him that he was a warrior. And what I kept thinking about is one of the main overall points mentioned in spirituality and points of our journey is to connect with our authentic selves. And the way to do that is by letting go of these outside desires that has been implanted onto us from the very beginning. So like they're desires that society said we should pursue, or at least that's been the common theme. And so, and like we would find that that has been holding true to our lives, that we've been pursuing things that we don't actually really care about, but we pursue those things because we were told we should. And so and then also another theme that is presented in spirituality as well that is like heavily emphasized is the male female energy. So I agree with Shauna as well that it doesn't have to do with the genitalia, but it has to do with the energy that resides in all of us. And we all do have male female energy. And when you look at male female energy, male energy is more aggressive, more dominant. Female energy is more nurturing, you know, a little more submissive. If you lean heavily on one side, you're more aggressive. If you lean heavily on the other side, you're more submissive. I'm wondering if that quote was really saying that he has to decide whether he wants to abandon that pursuit of all these things that society says he should pursue, for the sake of his identity, that would pull him away from being who he actually really is. So yeah.
I am feeling that completely, because it's like society's doing that to all of us. Society is telling all of us, you're a man and you're a woman and you should be feminine and you should be masculine. But it's exciting to see that we are all rising up and getting more in touch with our authentic selves, despite what the world is telling us who we should be and what role we should play. But yeah, I'm starting to feel like that is what's going on for Arjuna. Okay, thank you for that, Ashley. Appreciate that.
I actually, I'm so sorry. I just realized I actually didn't finish my chain of thought. Do you mind if I just finish that
Please
up really
do.
quickly?
Please do.
Okay. Because I realized I wasn't finished and then I completely forgot, but I just remembered. Okay, so what I'm really trying to say is, I think that maybe the passage is saying that we want to have balanced male female energy within us. That he's saying if he kills off all of the men, he would create an imbalance, you know? And that imbalance, if you're looking at it as a metaphor, it's like saying if you give all of your attention to one aspect of your energy, but not the other, then what's going to happen? And I think they're saying that you're going to experience conflict, major conflict. You have no idea what you're going to experience by choosing to create that imbalance within yourself. So yeah.
Yeah, I love it 100%. I'm totally digging that. Yes. Thank you for being so patient, Madhavi. Go ahead. Did I say your name correctly?
Yes, Shana.
Okay.
So I would like to give like some little bit background about this epic, because you asked a question like, who asked him to be a warrior, right?
Yeah.
So, so Arjuna and his lineage, wherever his lineage has started from, he belongs to the Kshatriya group, where they are like intended to be like more stronger, and they know all the like this epic had happened like few thousands of years ago. Like they should know about uh, um, uh, the I mean to say like about the how they use the bow and arrows, and in a very efficient way. So they go to the gurus who are already they know about that, like they went through that and they did all those archery rivalries and everything. So then they knew like how to, so even the fight happens when this Kurukshetra fight happens. So they have like different strategies, like how they can attack the other group of people. So why Arjuna has become like little weaker in the battlefield, it's because, so this happened between the children of like two brothers. So Arjuna has like five siblings. Arjuna is like is a part of five siblings. They are like Pandavas, and they are against like the another brothers' sons, who are like 100 people, like 99 men and one person is the woman. So they are like against 99 people, but these 99 people are like a set of people who has like bad virtues in them, and not so proficient with their bow and archeries and all these things. So that is the reason why, like when they went to the gurus, these gurus, they taught them, they identify the set of people who are really good at what kind of are, like for example, like Arjuna is identified as bow and arrow kind of a person, because he does the bow and arrow things like really well. So and Bhima has as an another weapon. So at that time there is no guns in their culture during that time, during that period of time. So they have to learn about these things in order to attack their enemies. So so this person like Arjuna, he in the battlefield he becomes weaker. So all these years he has developed that, okay, those are not doing well, not so. And also like, because even Arjuna and the five brothers, they are also part of the they are also the king's sons, but they did not get the amount of land, or they did not get the equal amount of rights when they were growing up. So that is the reason why like they wanted to fight for that, and they want to get those rights and everything, because they have all the skills and right, they are really good at all these things. So they wanted to fight for that. So but on the day of the the war, they have decided on that, and even Krishna went and spoke to the other set of people, their enemies, but they did not compromise. So but end of it, like they decided to do the war. So when this war, on the war day, Arjuna's thought process went reverse. Like he's thinking about like the blood relations, like, oh, I am killing my guru, oh, I am killing my brother, so I am killing my siblings. So not siblings, like they are the sons of the or his father's older brother's sons. They are Dhritarashtra, not Dhritarashtra, Dhritarashtra is his older, his father's older brother. And all these people, all the other 100 people, 99 kids who kids means, I mean, like they are men now. So they, those all are like the these all are like relatives who are fighting against each other, but under them they have like huge amount of states and everything who are actually working under them. So in order to in order to have the dharma and everything valued, that is the reason why Krishna encourages Arjuna to fight for the dharma to be established in the country, and for the peace, for the everybody's peace, and the for the righteous culture. They wanted to establish the dharma. So that's the reason why Krishna wanted to like he acts like he becomes the guru to Arjuna, and then he teaches him like what needs to be done has to be done and all that.
He's encouraging him. Thank you. For anybody who hasn't caught up with us, she basically just gave you a synopsis of what we've read up to. And I think, thank you for that. I think that, yeah, that's the question. And here's an even deeper question based on everything you just said. If we're not supposed to be, like Rose said, if we're not supposed to be taking this literally, and Rose, I'll still get to you if you still have something to say. But my question is, what do these mean symbolically? Because Krishna is trying to encourage Arjuna to fight for what's right. Because like you said, you know, the one brother that took over, I think he was the blind one or something, took over and didn't treat the rest of the family fairly. So there's an injustice going on. So where is that injustice going on internally? Is it because our ego is in charge and we're not fully treating the other parts of ourselves fairly? I don't know. And then also the whole thing about who told Arjuna he was a warrior. Again, what does that mean? Because I love that Sophia made a comment like this really seems to be coming down to identity and what's right and what's wrong. You feel like
yeah, I have I would like to comment on this because so why Arjuna received directly that preaching from Lord Krishna, it's because like um so Arjuna has like other four siblings too, like they are like five people. So but Arjuna is that one person who is actually this that kind of person is almost ready. He knows what is right, what is wrong, but he is unable to move forward with the war or like by killing people or anything, because he talks about like, okay, the other women get the who if the men if he kills some people, like the men out there in the war, so the women might get affected and this, so his thought process is going in a reverse direction, and he's like going deep and deep. And that's where like Krishna thought that, okay, let me bring this person, elevate his knowledge. He is knowledgeable, Arjuna is really knowledgeable. That is where like he chose Krishna to be on their side, so that he can guide that war really well. So when even that is the time where like so as Arjuna is like almost acceptable to take the preachings, that's the reason why like this thing had happened on the war of Kurukshetra, where so, and even also Bhagavad Gita is mentioned it as like, it is not just saying it is not just like a one day thing, so it went for like some 18 days. And Lord Krishna also took different sayings from the different Upanishads, and he like he creamed everything and he gave it to Arjuna. So um, what what generally every, so even like human beings like us, we also know what is right and what is wrong, but while putting the things into action, sometimes we might go according to our the internal thinking. Like even we all have the egos, the anger, and different things, so we have to, so that is the reason why this preaching has come, so that we should know, we should get that, and imbibe it into our brains, like our bodies, and also put that into action. That is the reason why so Arjuna can be like anybody, like I can be Arjuna, you can be Arjuna, so, or anybody can be Arjuna. That is the reason why he has chosen one person, because if even Arjuna is somewhere some person like any like on the day of the war, if Arjuna goes and fights with the enemies like really well, and we really don't know, we think that okay, Arjuna is very powerful guy, so he went and did his job well, and later on he ruled the country well, kingdom well. But this is happening because even all of us, like every man, woman, child, everybody goes through their own sort of pains and emotions and dualities, like like they mention it in our chapters, like the cold, hot, rich, poor, and sweet, bitter, all these things so that is what they mention, like we have to take both the things like on the same way, and we have to take our lives forward. That is the reason why Krishna has chosen Arjuna as a kind of guy where he wants to give the preaching, so that from Arjuna, when as an audience, like when we listen to it, so everybody should think that okay, we also can be Arjuna. So, and we are also receiving the same kind of knowledge, the spiritual knowledge from this person, from Krishna.
Yeah.
This is
Absolutely.
Janvi. Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. Please go ahead. Thank you
Yeah.
for that,
So,
Madhavi.
I mean, I would like to add a little bit like from a storytelling perspective, not spiritual perspective. Arjuna was born, like before Arjuna was born, his father prayed to the gods, and what he asked for his third son to be is the protector of the first son, and he should have all the skills to protect his brother, who would be the next king of their kingdom. So that is the reason why, that is the reason. And moreover, Arjuna practices and develops his skill. He does lot of tapasya to Lord Shiva, and I think to especially to Lord Shiva, and um, he gains lot of knowledge, and he improves his skill over the period, over the period which led him to, which over the period before the war. And also there was deep friendship between the two of them because they were almost of the same age, and they traveled together on multiple occasions, and that, so without Arjuna, Pandavas must have lost, or Pandavas and the people on the side of dharma would have lost the war. That is number one. And number two, because of the close friendship they had, they stayed together. I mean, they were closer compared to other brothers. uh, Also, if on that particular day, if Arjuna is not focused on his task, that would have resulted in devastation. So that is one of the reasons Krishna teleportedly, I mean, this is my understanding. How he gave Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna was he stopped the time and he teleported all the knowledge that he had in his brain into Arjuna's brain. And that's how Arjuna was enlightened. And he was able to focus on his job, not thinking about the results, not thinking, getting carried away by emotions. So, I mean, this is my perspective just on the storytelling side of it, not exactly on the spiritual side of it. The
Yeah.
spiritual side of it, multiple like layers, which we will explore, I think, in further.
Yeah, it's interesting because again, it keeps going back into, in my perspective, our identity, that a lot of it is just because, like, I think we get stuck. Like, if we're good at something, right? Like, we're going to tell you that you're going to be this, and then it just so happens that you're really good at it. And then when the time comes where you're starting to question, is this who I am? Is this who I want to continue to be? Right? Like, sometimes it's really hard to want another identity, to want to do something different or be something different, especially when you're good at the thing they told you that you were. I just find that interesting. I had a similar experience in my life that I'm recently transitioning out of. And so I'm just hearing this story and thinking, wow, I actually understand what it's like to have to stop and really think about not who the world is telling you you are, not who you're good at being, but who you want to become. And then you're focused on actions, thinking and actions that are moving you toward who you want to become. And I think that's where Arjuna is right now. I think he's in that state of, who do I want to become?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
what do my actions moving forward, are they going to take me there? I think it's interesting, on page 104 under selfless service, it's the very first entry, it's Arjuna, and he says, "Oh Krishna, you have said that knowledge is greater than action. Why then do you ask me to wage this terrible war? Your advice seems inconsistent. Give me one path to follow to the supreme good." And I have to tell you, there's a couple of things throughout this so far that remind me of the Bible, because the Bible also can be contradictory. And so I found that interesting, that that's another similarity between different beliefs, like that I find it interesting that it's also contradicting itself. I find that interesting. So what do you guys think about that, knowledge being greater than action? So why is he telling him to take this action if the knowledge is greater? Anybody have any thoughts? And yes,
I
Katie.
can add, yeah, yeah.
That's
I-
fine.
I-
Go
I-
Oh,
ahead.
John
No, I can
Navi,
wait.
go ahead, but do you know how to raise your virtual hand? At the bottom of the screen, there's like a little happy face and it says reactions.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
And if you tap
Yeah.
on that, you raise your hand and then that way, so you're next in line.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Katie.
Well, I just think that it's kind of interesting because we already talked about the yin and yang, and now reading that, it's like we're bringing that back up. Like that's the thing that popped out to me was like, oh, we're back to the yin and yang discussion right now. But I'm interested to see what everybody else has to say.
Yeah, and I actually think that's going to continue to be brought up because just like Ashley said earlier, like that's life. Like you're always going to have the opposite, the equal or the opposite, right? Okay, Janavi.
Yeah. So he said knowledge is greater than actions. Why is that so? So what I feel is because what knowledge we have will determine what actions we take. So during the course of Arjuna's life or Pandava's life, they have faced multiple obstacles because of their karma or because of Duryodhana or because of any other reasons. So they were always, on the hideout or roaming in the forest or doing the kind of things which the kings and the prince usually don't do. They were born with golden spoon, but they had to go through immense amount of hardships. They lose their father at an early age. So over the course of their life and also their time in school, they gained lots and lots and lots of knowledge. Duryodhana was born in the same family, he and his brothers. They had good early childhood life in the palace. Then they also went to the school with Pandavas to Gurukul. They gained their skill set there as well. But what did they learn during the course of them? Because of the influence of the wealth or influence of their uncle, they learned all these ego, anger, jealousy. These were the things which they have learned during their childhood along with the skills. So both of them had some set of knowledge. Even this ego, anger, I would say that is also a kind of knowledge, maybe not a positive one, which we learn during our life or which is born as in us because we are humans. But what did they do in their life to use that knowledge? Pandavas always tried to, better people around them, better the people in their kingdom using that knowledge. What did Duryodhana do? Even when he was made the king of Hastinapur, he didn't treat his people right. He didn't treat women right. So what did he do with his knowledge? So that's why the knowledge we gain will determine what actions we take.
Absolutely. I totally
So
agree.
I think that is the reason why he mentioned, maybe that is one of the reasons he mentioned why knowledge is more important than the action.
Yeah, I
Sometimes.
think that the bigger question is then if that is true, why do you want me to continue to wage this war? But again, we see the war as being bad, but I always bring this up whenever we see something as being bad. And I forget where I read this, but it says when a seed begins to grow, to an untrained eye, it looks like destruction. To somebody who doesn't know what growth looks like, they would see it and call it destruction. But it's the beginning of growth. So we're all sitting here seeing this waging war, literally or metaphorically speaking, against some part of himself. I think we're seeing it as a bad thing. And Krishna keeps trying to kind of like encourage him to follow through with his warrior responsibilities. And he's going, wait, not sure if that's what I want to do. I think it's interesting. I just think it's interesting that we're seeing it as negative when he might be actually doing himself a favor, or him and the rest of his family a favor. I don't know exactly, but it just seems interesting. But we are an hour and a half into the meeting. And so, Janavi, I'm going to get to you in just 1 second. Actually, I have, I'll go to you first, and then I have a few closing statements. So go to you first. That way I don't forget or change the subject. Go ahead, Janavi.
No, I mean, I don't have anything to add. I think the hand raise was from beginning. Like, I
Oh,
think we
okay.
popped it.
It's
So,
left
yeah.
over. Okay. I think there's, if you go back in there, it'll have the lower your, there you go. Yeah. Okay. Did anybody else want to jump in before I change the subject? Okay.
I don't have anything regards to like the 3 chapters. So today the meeting has started at 12 p.m. PST, Shauna.
Yes.
Oh, I joined at 1 because somewhere I saw that it is for like 1 to 2 p.m. So
Oh, okay. Well, I will send you the recording. I'm going to post the recording in the chat.
okay.
I'm
In the
having
YouTube,
trouble.
right?
Yeah, I'm having trouble with
Uh-huh.
email. I don't know why. I tried to send it twice today and it just sat in the outbox. So I'm probably going to really stay focused on the group chat for updating people
Okay.
more often than not. Monica?
Mhm.
Yes, hi. Shauna, regarding what you asked, yeah, you were saying like he says knowledge is greater than action. All I could refer to is one small example saying if there is a surgeon, he needs to have a lot of knowledge to put that into action to perform an operation. Let's say he has to do any kind of a surgery, he needs to have a lot of knowledge before doing that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason why we read and then we go ahead and dissect something. So that's
Yeah.
how I see that message.
Yeah, no, I
So,
understand the knowledge being greater than
yeah,
action. It was the next question that I thought was more interesting. If that's the case, then why are you forcing me or encouraging me to go into the action?
exactly. I know because when I read that statement initially, I was also thinking about the same thing. But when I read this statement over and over again, this example caught my eye. I'm like, oh yes, because Arjuna was thinking he has the knowledge, then why should he wage the war? But I think Krishna wants to explain that everyone is not knowledgeable as him. And he has a lot of experience, he has knowledge, and that's the reason he wants everyone to follow maybe I'm not getting it right, but what I want to say is he is a leader, and a leader has to do the right thing. If a leader says, hey, you know what, we have the knowledge, let's just sit back, but what's going to happen? The evil is going to take over us, and that's not what he wants. That's how I see it. Yeah, that's what I wanted to
I
explain.
appreciate that. And you're also just drawing me right now to, I'm pretty sure Jay Shetty has pointed this out in the program, like in the modules somewhere. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're teaching us that, like, to move forward with our goals in our life, you have to link action with knowledge. So even if knowledge is greater than action, they need each other in order to move us forward. So then if at the end of the day, is it really greater then? I don't know. If they need each other. Interesting.
So it's actually Shana, which reminds me of one thing, but the caption which I really like. I think the way I see it is, I read this somewhere. It says the world is changed by your example, not by your opinion.
Amen, sister. Again, which goes to action, right?
Exactly.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Man, we are really touching on some cool topics. Just a couple of things that I wanted to plant some seeds that we can think about as we go off into our day and continue our journey with our book. I felt comfortable reading 3 chapters. Did everybody else feel like that was comfortable?
Yes, Shauna.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. If anybody does not, please say so. Please speak up. So I would say moving forward, then we'll do chapters 4, 5, and 6. And I did want to just talk about page 83 and 84. Let me see. I thought page 83 was very cool when it says he is forced to ask the perennial questions about life and death. Does he have a soul? Does it survive death? Is there a deeper reality than we perceive in the world around us? If so, is it possible to know it directly? And for Arjuna is always practical. What effect does such knowledge have in everyday life? That passage really struck me because I felt like that's why I'm reading this book, because I'm hoping it answers some of those questions. So I really resonate with Arjuna from that perspective. So that really captivated my interest. And then also, Krishna begins reminding Arjuna of his immortal nature, his real self, the Atman, never dies, for it is never born, it is eternal. I feel like that's something we all already know, right? Like this group of people, like we all feel our soul is eternal. But again, I thought it was kind of cool to have that validation in a book that is so ancient and so respected. It's kind of neat to see that and go, wow, look how far we've come on our journey. Like we already have this understanding. So that was cool. And then on page 84, I thought this was really interesting. It says the Gita does not teach a spirituality aimed at an enjoyable life in the hereafter, nor does it teach a way to enhance power in this life or the next. It teaches a basic detachment, there's that word again, from pleasure and pain. As this chapter says more than once, only in this way can an individual rise above the conditioning of life's dualities and identify with the Atman, the immortal self. So, wow. So if it's not going to give us those answers, why are we reading it? I'm done. The book club's over. No, I'm just kidding. So I thought that was interesting. Like he basically just summed up what the Gita is going to do for us, like just in that tiny little, Ashley, go ahead.
So yeah, so I was just gonna say, well, then that just ties back into, maybe the purpose of the passage. So the way that I've been interpreting the passage so far is I've been interpreting it the same way that it's said to interpret the Bible, which is the Bible speaks in parables. So that means there's a hidden message, there's a metaphor. So I think that these stories that are being presented to us, that we're not that the purpose isn't to focus on the story, but to focus on the message behind the story. Because as we now know, behind every single chapter, there is that persistent message, which is, oh fuck, what did they say was the purpose? I forgot midway.
The purpose is to detach, a basic detachment from pleasure and pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then going off of that, for them to ask him to wage the war, that's them in essence asking him to let go of his pleasure. Like he's said that he's enjoyed engaging in the war. And so that right there is a perfect example of them saying, so now they want him to explore what life actually looks like for him, what it actually feels like for him once he actually decides to let go of these things that he's been holding on to, that he's showed clear attachment for, since he's showing resistance to wanting to let it go.
That's super interesting because he is trying to avoid pain by not waging war. But also like he's like
wow,
giving up the pleasures by not waging war. So both, it's super weird. I mean, not weird, but it's interesting and it gives you so much to think about. There's so much yin and yang happening right now. Thanks for that, Ashley.
Sorry to interrupt, but which
Okay.
also explains us that if we focus on our short-term goals, like, he's just thinking about the war right now, but at that moment, I mean, to put it in a different way, if we are also thinking about the short-term goals, we end up in disaster in the long term. But if we think about the long-term goal and we go through that pain for a little amount of time, then the fruits would be great.
That is an excellent point. That's right. If we resist the urge to sacrifice our momentary gratification, then we will have greater gratification in our end goals. Yeah, good point. Madhavi, thanks for being patient. Go ahead.
I just want to add a point like this mainly teaches the detachment from pleasure and pain, and like basically Bhagavad Gita. So it teaches the detachment. So the detachment from the materialistic world, the pleasure and pain, the bitter and sorrow, like the bitterness and the sweetness, like so these things are like mostly like it is related to all of our emotions, like the happiness, and we always tend to be like, oh, we want to be happy, we don't want to have sad days, we always want to be rich, and we don't want to be like not having money or anything like that. So having money is good, but it's not always the money. So that is the detachment we will be learning from Gita. That that is where like the inner the bottom line is that that is where like the spirituality will be elevated in one's life. So like the underlying spirituality comes up like when we feel the pleasure, we'll be like we will not like will not be like overexcited, and when we feel very sad, we'll not be too depressed. So that is where that detachment should we receive the from the preaching of Gita, and somewhere our spiritual elevation will be like day by day it gets increased. So so maybe the author's way of portraying thing is that probably they don't want to sit and say like, okay, I am very spiritual and all these things. So with the we have to put that knowledge into action, like even like channelizing our emotions into like in a proper way. That is what like Gita teaches us, and that's what it is written in this paragraph or the lines. I feel that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It's actually, I'm going right back to what Artie said earlier about prioritizing, because detachment isn't always realistic when we're experiencing the real world. And so sometimes if we're just able to prioritize what we're giving our energy to, then we're staying a little bit more like one foot in the spiritual world and one foot in the physical world. Like there's some kind of a balance there, right? And just in closing, page 86, it says, when a person's choices are, this is, I'm paraphrasing, but when a person's choices are dictated by desires, this leads to spiritual destruction. And I just want to point out that desires are not always like sex and chocolate. Like we always think like, go to the, or money, right? We always think of the fun distractions and pleasures, but desires are also things that we coaches struggle with, because we desire to save people, right?
Yes.
We desire to fix people's problems. And I have experienced in the Jay Shetty program that I've had to resist those desires in order to be a better coach. So we think that our desires are always the good things, right? But it's not. Sometimes we're desiring bad things. I mean, hey, heroin is a bad thing and a lot of people desire that. So I'm just saying like desire is not always for the good things. And it continues to talk about a detachment from pain and pleasure. So I just want to ask everybody to think about that throughout this week, to think about what does that look like in your life? Where are you detaching from pain and pleasure in your life? And when you do that, are you feeling a closeness spiritually to your higher power, to your divine, whatever it is that you believe in? When you're practicing detachment, are you feeling a closer relationship to God, or whatever you want to call it? So I'm just going to end on that note. Please come with your questions for next week, and write them down. Maybe think about some of the things. I'll get with you in just one moment, Katie. Think about when we're reading these words, like I talked about earlier, the kingdom and the riches. Maybe try to think about what that means, about what's in our head, but not what the kingdom and riches look like in our real life, but what our kingdom and riches are inside of us. Katie, go ahead.
So I was just gonna ask you, are you having a meeting on Thursdays too?
No, I put it out there because somebody said I can do Thursdays in the afternoon. And I said, well, I would be willing to do that if other people wanted to, but nobody did. So as of right now, it's Mondays at noon.
Okay, cool. Just checking.
Thank you. I really appreciate every single one of you. You guys have such beautiful brains and beautiful souls. And I feel very honored to be sharing this journey with you. So thank you all so much.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you,
For
Shauna.
putting this together.
Yeah, this is awesome. We'll see you guys next Monday. We're going to come back even smarter than we are today. Woo, woo.
Thank you, Shauna.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye, friends.